One of the books that my coach has not so much recommended to me, but praised highly and mentioned that it was really influential to his work. And then I checked it out and was like, oh my God, this is gold. Is a book called Coaching for Improved Work Performance by Fournier, Ferdinand Fournier. It's some kind of American management researcher or consultant. Now, I used to lead a team, and I was a terrible team lead for a variety of reasons, but the main reason was that a part of all the issues that I probably have, I also lacked the tools and the knowledge how to actually manage a team, and I kind of didn't know how to get them, and I didn't even know that I lacked them or that these tools existed. And so I'm reading this book now, and there are so many things that I'd say if you've been in business and you've been in leadership, they might make you smile, because there's a lot of things that are very obvious and almost absurd. But let me read a passage to you. For example, a vice president running a large distribution center told me in confidence that his number 2 man was not cutting the mustard. I asked him what seemed to be the problem, and he replied, "The man is not pulling his own weight." When I asked him what specifically he was doing wrong, the answer was, "He hasn't been on the bandwagon since he got the job." The conversation continued like that for another few minutes until I finally told him, "I don't know what you are talking about." If the vice president had told one of his peers, "My number 2 man is not cutting the mustard," the likely response would have been, "Do you have a replacement yet?" Now, this might seem ridiculous and absurd, but the truth is that this is very real. Now, this is an old book, I think 30 years old or something like that. But if you look around now, you will find that it is much more common that people talk like this. And it's just an example of very unclear communication. And a lot of these problems can be solved through better communication. I'm just going to keep reading a little bit from that book, because why not? Then he talks about the fact that a lot of managers become managers because they were good at their job, and then they get promoted to become managers, but they don't really get a management training. They don't get taught how to become a manager. And then often the people who promoted them to management later look at their performance as a manager, and they're like, "Oh, this person is just screwing things up." And he said, the first question I ask when someone's failure is pointed out to me is, "Who taught him how to do it?" And the usual answer is, "No one." Which is exactly why they can't do it, because they haven't been taught, they haven't been given the tools. And I did the same mistake myself. Like, I hired people to kind of manage people underneath them, and I didn't tell them how to manage them. I didn't teach them. I didn't know it myself. And this thing goes up and up and up the chain. Let me find another one. He has a really good framework about what managing actually is. So, to be successful as a people manager, you must recognize 3 very important basic facts about your role as a manager. Fact number 1: management is getting things done through others. Fact number 2: you need your subordinates more than they need you. Fact number 3: You get paid for what your subordinates do, not for what you do. The only reason for you to be there as a manager is to do everything in your power to help them be as successful as possible. You succeed only when they succeed. A higher score can be achieved only if you accept full responsibility for the success or failure of your subordinates. It also means that the more successful you wish to be in the business world, the harder you must work to do everything possible to help your subordinates achieve rather than fail. And then he talks about what happens when, an employee doesn't work out and you tried everything to make it work and you've gotten to that point where you have to let them go. He says, well, basically that's your responsibility. It's your failure, right? And it's not that they fail, it's that you fail as a manager. But I like the way he puts it. The last thing you do before you fire someone is to look in the mirror and say to yourself, you failed. And then go out and say to the subordinate, you're fired. This is the complete opposite of customary managerial behavior, which is to look at the subordinate and say, you failed, you're fired. That was a nice distinction. Also very true. He does a really good job at pointing out some of the things when you're a manager, maybe for the first time, and how it's like struggling. And then he talks about something where that I was grappling with when I was managing a team, and that was, well, when you are managing a team, people look at you different, right? And your behavior and your words, they have kind of a different weight. And he says, there is an element of show business in management. You don't have a choice as to whether it is there or not. You can choose only to recognize it or not. You can ignore it, but you can't make it go away. The fact is that when you are in front of your subordinates, you are on stage. I don't like the word subordinates, but it makes it very clear, and I guess 30 years ago that was kind of the normal lingo. Okay, so then he this is an addendum to what he's just written here. I know there are managers who, when aggravated by their subordinates, slam doors, slam drawers, slam down phones, break pencils, and throw pads on the desk or across the room. The same managers, when aggravated by their bosses, do not break pencils or throw pads or slam doors or kick the boss's desk. The reason is they know it would be self-destructive behavior to do that in front of a boss. The reason they continue to do that to their subordinates is because they don't realize that it is self-destructive behavior to do so. So he says, and I've been on the receiving end of that too, where a manager, you make a mistake and they get angry and they express their anger in kind of childish ways, right? But when you are the employee and your manager is doing that, it doesn't necessarily always feel childish. It feels intimidating because you're like, oh my God, I fucked up. And this person kind of decides about your professional fate in that situation, right? And then he continues to write, you may feel it is quite natural to express your anger and irritation when one of your subordinates fools up his performance. It certainly may feel natural, but it has nothing to do with management. It is actually self-destructive. It is just as self-destructive as kicking your bowling ball because you missed a split. People kick a bowling ball only once in a lifetime. They find out it's self-destructive. And so as a manager, you typically get away with that kind of behavior because you're the manager, but you don't realize that it is self-destructive, or not everyone realizes that it's self-destructive, because most of the time you can keep on doing it, and the consequences of that action are so delayed unless you do it in a really pathologic way, or you're in a very healthy culture where that kind of behavior is not accepted. But in many companies, management gets away with that. So you don't realize the downstream effects of that kind of behavior. But then also he acknowledges a certain point that, well, maybe you do get upset. Maybe you do get angry if an employee fucks up, right? So what do you do then? And here he says, or you're just angry for other reasons. Maybe you're having a bad day, right? But a bad day as a manager, you can't just live it out. Or you shouldn't. Now, he says, okay, it is not expected that you switch your emotions on and off like a light switch. But it is expected when you realize that your reactions to your emotions are damaging your effectiveness as a manager, that you will work to improve it. For example, if you get a ticket on your way to work and you step into slush up to your knees when you get out of the car, you should take a moment to calm yourself down and say to yourself, now look, this has nothing to do with those nice people inside, therefore, why should I go in there and emote all over them? Then enter your office and proceed as you normally do. If you cannot yet control yourself to that extent, then, when you enter the office, you had better tell enough people, I just want to let you know that I'm going to act a little weird today because I'm really mad about stepping into slush up to my knees and getting a ticket on the way to work. Because if you do that, and I think probably everyone has had that experience where the boss comes in and is in a really shitty mood and you don't know that, but you just see a slice of your boss's day. And then you immediately think, oh, right, maybe I did something wrong. Maybe, and you kind of tend to project it on yourself, right? If your boss walks in and he kind of looks angrily at you, you're like, what did I do wrong, right? And you kind of take it personal. So you can't do that. Let's skip forward. This is about, there's a section about the cost of firing someone versus the cost of trying to make it work. I'm not going to read it. This is just an experiment. Trying to read on camera. I don't think it made a lot of sense, but it made sense to me in terms of just re-going over what I've read here. I think it's a fantastic book for anyone who is getting into management or managing, because there's a lot of very practical tools inside yet, and I haven't even gotten to that section yet, but just based on conversations I've had with my coach about some of the contents of this book and this kind of pre-section where he lays the groundwork on which the tools will then be built, I can already tell this is gold. It's so practical. And there's a lot of like management theory books and frameworks that teach you certain aspects, but the people management part of it, this I think is the most practical, actionable tool set that you can have. And then you can apply your own styles to it. And I feel like there's a lot, I've read a lot of books that are kind of like about the style that you lay on top of it, but this is actually how to use the actual tools. This is the screwdriver, this is the wedge, this is the hammer, right? And when you have those tools already to your disposal, because either you learned it or you're natural, right, or you kind of stumbled over it, then that's great. Then all these books that give you a style or a framework on how to use these tools in your own way or in a better way for a certain objective are wonderful. But if you don't have these tools yet, you're kind of like missing the mark. And that was definitely the case for me.